welcome to another brand deep dive where we take a journey through the remarkable history, heritage, and legacy of some of the most iconic luxury brands. And today it's finally time to discuss everything you need to know about one of the most iconic household luxury brands, Tiffany, a brand that I'm sure will require no introduction, considering that it's one of the most world-renowned brands and it's been part of pop culture since the 1960s. And while the brand's perception has gone through some ups and downs, their iconic blue box remains to be an object of desire. But the question also remains, are Tiffany pieces of jewelry actually worth the hype and the price? Today I'm going to be revealing the truth about Tiffany, including what pieces to buy, which ones to avoid, and what you need to know about the piece that all the boys and girls are dreaming of, their legendary engagement ring. If that sounds interesting to you, then make sure to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe down below if you haven't done so yet, and keep on marching. For almost 200 years, Tiffany has been recognized as one of the most glamorous and most romantic luxury brands, with a reputation for exclusivity, reliability, high quality, and truly timeless styles. But in order to understand the roots of the brand and why they are so beloved, we must start at the beginning. And our story begins in the early 1800s because Tiffany first opened its doors on Broadway in New York City in 1837. It's a brand that was founded by two young entrepreneurs, Charles Louis Tiffany and his business partner, John B. Young. Originally, the brand was named Tiffany, Young and Ellis. And this store tried to fill a gap in the market, but not the gap that you're most likely thinking of, because most jewelry brands that we've talked about before really had strong roots in the art of crafting jewelry. Of course, I have videos on Cartier, Bulgari, even Van Cleef, and what these brands all share is a passion for the art of crafting jewels. Of course, Van Cleef started out with the merger of a family of jewelers and gemstone dealers. When it comes to Bulgari, their roots are in silversmith artistry, but Tiffany had a slightly different beginning because, believe it or not, Tiffany started out by offering stationery and luxury goods, which basically just meant a variety of luxury items, not exclusively jewelry. And while it was revolutionary, the idea at the time, it wasn't an instant hit, which really forced the founders to continue innovating. In the late 1840s, they introduced and pioneered the first male catalog, which was called the Blue Book collection, which helped spread the word about the eccentric mix of luxury items the store had curated for their affluent clientele. But it really wasn't until the 1860s, after Charles took full leadership of the company and renamed the brand to simply Tiffany, that they really started narrowing their attention to realizing visions of fine jewelry and fine timepieces, which really helped them establish the principles of craftsmanship and innovation, which is of course what the brand is known for today, or what they would like the brand to be known for. And this was so successful that by the 1870s, Charles became known as the King of Diamonds, which was only strengthened when in 1878 Tiffany acquired a staggering 287 carat diamond from the Kimberley mines that became known as the legendary Tiffany Diamond, one of the most famous gemstones in the entire world. And this was really only just the beginning, because Tiffany single-handedly reinvented the concept of engagement rings and elevated them to a status symbol, both literally and figuratively speaking, because in 1886 they introduced the Tiffany Setting, which was really carefully engineered to gently lift the diamond above the band using a 6-prong setting, which was virtually invisible, and it really allowed the diamond to come into its own and give the max amount of shine and brilliance it possibly can, considering that it wasn't sitting so close to a metal that could taint its shine and its power, and it quickly became the standard for all engagement rings. Not to mention that the marketing was so powerful behind this statement that even today it remains the most sought after engagement ring style, immensely coveted and often imitated but never duplicated, at least if you ask Tiffany. Now, the Tiffany setting is something that most brands offer at this point. What makes this setting different, as I mentioned before, is the 6-prong setting. So instead of just 4 prongs holding the diamond, the Tiffany setting allows 6 extremely thin and carefully crafted prongs to gently elevate the diamond above its band. And again, it's important because it really allows the diamond to give a little bit more sheen and brilliance compared to a regular setting that would squeeze the diamond a little bit closer to the band, basically blocking some valuable light that could increase the fire and the sparkle of the stone that you're spending so much money on. Now, diamond engagement rings have become quite controversial. Should you go lab grown? Should you go natural? At the end of the day, they're both real diamonds. The only difference is that lab grown diamonds are made in a lab, as the name suggests, whereas natural diamonds are formed over thousands and thousands, if not millions of years underground. So that is just what it comes down to. One thing you want to make sure of is that if you are going to go for a natural diamond, you buy one that is ethically sourced. So it was mined in a way that does not harm the planet or humans. According to Tiffany, they respect not only the environment, but also human labor. So all of their diamonds are strictly ethically sourced. And what Tiffany claims is that they only use the 0.5% top quality diamonds in the entire world. But Tiffany actually has a really unique relationship with diamonds. And by the way, speaking of lab-grown diamonds, all of Tiffany diamonds are natural diamonds, but they've been known to invest in up and coming startups that tried to replicate diamonds in a lab, because of course not all lab grown diamonds are created equal. It is quite a widespread technology at this point, but a few years ago it wasn't quite as refined as it is today. And Tiffany in the past invested in some of these lab grown ventures and technologies, but as far as we know today, all of their diamonds are natural that you can find in stores. But I could definitely see them coming out with a diffusion line or a line that also incorporates some lab-grown diamonds into their collections. But today, all of their diamonds are ethically sourced. They're natural diamonds, and they are meant to be the top 0.5% of all the diamonds in the world. But Tiffany doesn't just use the traditional GIA certificates, because if you know anything about diamonds, you know that most diamonds that you buy from a reputable source will come with a GIA certificate, which basically tells you everything that you need to know about these pieces. GIA is an independent company that certifies diamonds based on the 4 C's, so clarity, cut, carat, and color. I can't believe I almost forgot that, the 4 C's. But Tiffany diamonds don't just rely on GIA certificates. At this point, most Tiffany diamonds will indeed come with a GIA certificate, but they also have their internal standards, which you can see on the Tiffany Diamond certificate, that basically certifies not only authenticity and integrity, but it also grades Tiffany diamonds, and the grades are based on their very own standards. And you might be wondering, are Tiffany diamonds really that much better compared to a regular diamond? Well, if you compare them to other diamonds out there, diamonds greatly vary depending on the 4 C's. So the color, the cut, the clarity, and the carat weight. But because most Tiffany diamonds at this point do come with a GIA certificate, which wasn't always the case, you can really easily compare them side by side, and it will not feel like you're comparing apples to oranges. It will be a really easy and really accurate comparison, and I did some digging for you. So standard Tiffany engagement ring that features a 1 carat diamond, and I will make sure to leave all the details of the diamond up here. A ring like that in a simple platinum setting with the Tiffany setting will set you back just around $18,000 to $20,000. It all depends on the diamond that you pick, because diamonds greatly vary depending on their characteristics. but you can expect to pay around $20,000 for a ring of that caliber. Well, if you wanted to buy an identical ring, and when I say identical, I mean identical, a diamond with an independently certified GIA certificate in the same color, in the same weight, in the same cut and clarity, that diamond ring would cost you just over $6,000 with the same setting, also set in platinum. So when it comes to Tiffany engagement rings, it's definitely a lot more about the branding and the marketing than the value that you are getting at the end of the day. But this is a luxury channel after all, so if anyone, I certainly understand why someone would want to spend a premium on luxury packaging and the overall luxury experience, and you are getting a beautifully made product from Tiffany, but it might not be that much more beautiful to justify the upcharge, considering that, as we discussed, it can set you back 3 times more than how much it would cost you to get a virtually identical piece from a non-branded jewelry house. But there is an additional service that Tiffany offers, which is called the Tiffany Promise, which basically allows customers who previously purchased a ring of a certain caliber from Tiffany. So I believe the ring has to be made of yellow gold or white gold, and the diamond has to be at least 0.18 carats. If you register these rings with Tiffany and you purchase it directly from them, you can at one point recycle your ring and upgrade it to a larger diamond size, which I can definitely see as an enticing suggestion. But in reality, that's certainly something that you could also do with a piece that you buy from an independent jeweler. If you're buying something that's made of solid precious metal, features an authentic diamond, in theory, it's something that you could always sell back to your jeweler, or really to any jeweler out there, and then put that money towards a new purchase, a larger diamond, or a ring of a different style. It's not something that's exclusively offered at Tiffany, but it's interesting that they do this program, which I'm sure a lot of customers take advantage of because of this phenomena called the diamond shrinkage syndrome, which doesn't mean that your diamond will physically or chemically shrink. Of course, that's not the case. But when you have a ring on your finger for quite a while, if it's something that you wear regularly, because of this continued exposure, over time you'll adapt to the size of it and you'll start seeing it as smaller than it actually is, which is why a lot of people like to upgrade. Not to mention that it's also a nice sentiment. It's something that can help you celebrate a big anniversary. So I don't think there's anything wrong with upgrading your diamond ring, but I do think that a lot of people would still like to hold on to their original engagement ring instead of having it directly recycled. So it might not even be worth it for you to spend the money on Tiffany just so you can take advantage of this Tiffany Promise program if at the end of the day you do want to hold on to your original engagement ring. Because if you take advantage of this service, you do have to give your ring back to Tiffany, otherwise you will not get a credit for your original purchase. But the diamond shrinkage is something that will go for any diamond piece out there, not just for Tiffany. I would be remiss if I failed to mention the iconic Tiffany Blue shade, because it's more than just a color, it's more of a cultural icon at this point. The Tiffany Blue is as much of a symbol as a piece of Tiffany jewelry. I don't think Tiffany would be as successful as it is today without the branding of the Tiffany Blue and the highly desired Tiffany box. But did you know that that shade of blue is actually owned by Tiffany? It's something that the company had trademarked. I believe the official term is for that color is the Pantone 1837. It's of course named after the year the company was founded, and it is a color that is now owned by Tiffany. But the origin of that color is still a mystery. We have no idea why Charles Tiffany picked that particular shade. There are some thoughts out there. There are some ideas that perhaps it's because this shade of blue was very often used in Victorian jewelry, a period that Charles Tiffany was a huge fan of, but we don't know why he handpicked that color. What we do know, however, is that it was something that he was extremely proud of. In fact, he was quoted that no Tiffany box can ever leave the store without a piece of jewelry being in there. So it's not something that they were just giving out as a gift. It's something that he felt was a crucial part of the Tiffany experience. As well known as Tiffany is, there's no doubt that the brand's perception has gone through some ups and downs. There were times, as we discussed, when this brand was at the very top. It was the very definition of exclusive luxury. And then there were points in time when it was seen as a little bit more common, for lack of a better word, especially when they introduced the Return to Tiffany collection. Even though it was a huge success, and it still is, I would assume that it is the collection that still keeps the lights on, and it makes for an amazing memorabilia. It was mainly targeted at a younger audience, so it definitely hurt the exclusive brand perception of Tiffany, especially considering that they were selling necklaces for a couple $100s next to diamond pieces that would set you back tens of thousands of dollars. And that juxtaposition, I think, was quite hard to manage for a brand as exclusive as Tiffany. But it appears that every decade there is a pivotal moment when someone breathes fresh air into the Tiffany brand, starting with actress Audrey Hepburn, whose role in Breakfast at Tiffany truly cemented the brand's place in popular culture, and it transformed it into a household name. Then came Sex and the City, Charlotte's Proposal, that again reminded us of Tiffany as a symbol of aspiration and elegance. There are these very important cultural moments that truly made us feel like that there's no life without Tiffany, and it's certainly something that Tiffany could give us a masterclass in, branding and marketing. But it's not something that they always take advantage of. They have also used the power of marketing for good, especially when it comes to inclusivity. In 2015, for example, they were the first luxury brand to feature a same-sex couple in its advertising campaign, embracing diversity and affirming that Tiffany is truly for everyone, which is a message that is conveyed in really everything that they do. As I mentioned, they have ranges and pieces for everyone, or almost for everyone, at a variety of different budgets. And I love the fact that their ad campaigns not only feature this traditional idea that a man and a woman need to come together to buy Tiffany, but same-sex couples can also enjoy a piece of Tiffany and can use Tiffany as a brand to commemorate their love. And they also emphasized the strength and power that independent women have, considering that they have been actively enlisting A-listers to keep the brand relevant, shifting the narrative away from women needing a man's gift to a message that women can buy themselves a blue box if they choose to do so. Today, the brand highlights both powerful women and men who treat themselves to a piece of Tiffany, and they have also tried to open up the brand to a younger audience by choosing to work with ambassadors like members of the highly popular K-pop groups BTS and Blackpink. And now that you know more about Tiffany than probably most people working at Tiffany, it's time to move on to what pieces to buy from Tiffany and which ones I would personally try to avoid, starting with their engagement rings. As we discussed, I personally don't think that Tiffany engagement rings are worth the money. Here we're not talking about and comparing fakes to reals. If you really want to maximize the size of your stone, I would really not spend my hard-earned money on a Tiffany engagement ring, just because there's really nothing that special about Tiffany's engagement rings, unless you're choosing a setting or a style that is really difficult to craft or is really unique to Tiffany, which there aren't many of out there. I would personally much rather put that premium towards buying a larger stone from an independent jeweler, or maybe even a stone of the same size, color, clarity, and cut, but at a much lower price point, and then that money could go towards a honeymoon, a trip, or something else. So personally for me, Tiffany engagement rings are just not worth the money because there's really nothing that truly unique about them. And again, it's not even like comparing apples to oranges because you are getting the exact same thing for a fraction of the price from an independent jeweler. But of course, make sure that you go to someone who is reliable and who has amazing craft people working for them, because not all engagement rings are created equal. At the end of the day, it is an art form, so you want to go to someone who is truly passionate about the artistry of crafting jewelry. But most pieces of jewelry at this point are machine made anyway, and it's really only the final touches that is done by hand. But just keep in mind that Tiffany engagement rings, unless it's truly been a dream of yours since you were a little child, might not be something that is worth your hard-earned money. But something that is Tiffany's Elsa Peretti collection. So Elsa Peretti was a designer that Tiffany collaborated with for years, and they have an extensive collection of pieces. And I don't want to go into too much detail here because it's a collection that I discussed in a recent vlog of mine, which I will make sure to link up here for you. But the Elsa Peretti collection is quite extensive. It not only includes pieces of jewelry, but also home pieces, because in case you were not aware, Tiffany is a comprehensive lifestyle brand. In fact, I actually really like some of their home pieces. So since we are on the topic of the Elsa Peretti collection, two pieces that I love from this collection are the Elsa Peretti thumb dish, which they offer in a ton of different colors and sizes and even materials. My personal favorite is the solid sterling silver dish and the one that they do in black glass. And if you're wondering why it's called the thumb dish, the naming is not the most ingenious considering that it's called the thumb dish, because it has a thumb print, or sort of kind of like a thumbprint, a thumb indent, I should say, on the edge of the dish. And they also have matching cups and glasses, which I think are incredibly cool. But if I could only choose one piece from the entire Tiffany lineup, I would probably say to go for either the bone bracelets or the bone rings, which are actually inspired by human bones. In fact, they are intentionally sculpted to follow the anatomy of your wrist and allow these pieces to become one with your body. I think there are very few pieces out there that will add as much of a statement to an outfit as these pieces would. I think in my original video talking about these pieces, I compared them to the Hermes CDC, not in how they look, but what they will do for you. I think if you like one, it's very likely that you'll like the other two. The bone bracelets come in a few different sizes, or width, I should say, in a ton of different finishes. They're available in silver, in solid gold, and also in ceramic. And that is a collection that I would highly encourage you to look into. If there is a piece that's worth the money, that might just be it, because there is something so incredibly unique about it. I really cannot think of another piece of fine jewelry that would do for you what these pieces would add to an outfit and to your collection. And I also love the rings. One thing to keep in mind is that the price jump between the silver and the solid gold pieces is immense. I think they're almost 10 times the price in solid gold than they are in silver. You know my thoughts when it comes to designer sterling silver jewelry. In most cases, I don't think it's worth the price, because silver tarnishes, it chips, it marks a lot easier than solid gold would. But in this case, I think sterling silver would still be a good choice, just because, again, the price difference is so huge. But the bone collection is not something you can go wrong with, as long as you don't mind the grotesque inspiration behind it, which, again, if you want to find out more about that, I will make sure to have a video linked up here for you. But the Elsa Peretti collection is a lot more extensive than that. They also have some other pieces, none of which you can go wrong with, but there's nothing quite like the bone collection. Going from archival pieces to some of the most recent additions to the Tiffany family, most of which was used to pump some fresh blood into the brand, and they did a great job. Some of these collections are really quite different from what we had seen from Tiffany before, starting with the hardware collection, which is incredibly popular. Personally, it's not my favorite launch from the brand. It is a bold, quite powerful launch from the house of Tiffany. It is known for this really unique chain, which is actually hand finished. The chain links are made of these really bold individual pieces that are finished with two little bows, which to me just look a little strange. I cannot quite put my finger on what I dislike about this collection, but to me it just feels, those little bows with the chain just feel almost like a dog leash or a dog collar, and not a dog collar like the Collier de Chien from Hermes, which I really quite like. This to me just feels too rough and too harsh in a weird way, but I know a lot of people really enjoy this collection. The earrings from this collection I think are probably the most popular. I don't wear earrings, so I cannot share with you my personal experience with those. If you own those earrings, which I'm sure a lot of you will, please let us know your thoughts in the comment section. I can tell you that I do not like the look of them. If I was forced, literally forced to choose a piece from this collection, I would probably go for the micro chain, because I think in the micro size, considering that those little bows are a little bit smaller, to me that feels a little bit more refined. But I would certainly not buy any of the bracelets, any of the earrings. They also do some pendants with this chain motif, but to me, I just don't like those little bows at the end of each chain link. And then shortly after came the lock collection, which, if you ask me, was Tiffany's response to the success of the Cartier Love bracelet. It definitely has a very similar look and feel to it, and also the inspiration is quite similar in that you basically use these pieces to lock down your loved ones, except these pieces don't come with a screwdriver, which, if you didn't know that, the Cartier Love pieces are actually inspired by medieval chastity belts. Just a fun little side note, but it is a very similar look, a very similar collection. But thankfully at this point they have expanded on the lock collection, and while I did not like the original bangles, I actually really like the oval rings from the lock collection, which again is something that I featured in a Tiffany vlog of mine. So if you'd like to see more of a close-up of these pieces and hear my thoughts on those, that video will be linked up here for you. But the lock rings I really like the look of. I have always liked rings that go on two fingers, or even rings that would go on two fingers, but I felt that most of them were quite feminine for me. But because these lock rings are a little bit more oval but only go on one finger, you kind of get a similar look and feel without the ring becoming overwhelming or too feminine or too much like one of those sort of instruments that people use for fighting. I don't even know what they're called, that go over several fingers. I really like the shape of these rings, that they're slightly more oval, yet they only go on one finger, if that makes sense. They come in a ton of different shades, with some with and without diamonds. So the lock rings I would certainly encourage you to look into, but the bracelets personally are just not my favorite shape, and the pendants I really did not think worked either. Some of you might be wondering, what about their watches? You mentioned at the beginning of this video that they have been crafting watches pretty much since their inception. And while I do like some of their watches, I think they are way too overpriced for what they are. I think a watch style that they try to push is called the Atlas watch, which is sort of their entry-level watch. I really don't like the look of it. They remind me of Michael Kors, so it's not something that I would personally spend my money on. Again, if I was forced to pick a watch from Tiffany, it would probably be their cocktail watch, which is from their women's collection. I really don't like any of their watches that they do for men. There's one with a moon phase on it that is quite special, but I would never pay, I think it's $19,000 for it. To me, it's just simply not worth it. But a watch that I love the look of, I think it is incredibly crafted, is their cocktail watch, which is an oval, extremely feminine watch. It almost feels like a piece of jewelry that just happens to tell the time. You wouldn't necessarily be buying it because you need a timepiece. You'd most likely buy it because you want a sparkly accessory. that comes in a ton of different finishes. It comes with some diamonds or fully encrusted with pave diamonds. That is an eye-catching, stunning, head-turning piece. They also do a beautiful Art Deco watch, which again feels like a glorified piece of fine jewelry. So those I'm a big fan of, but it's not something that I would personally recommend or spend my hard-earned money on. But if you're really into your arm candy, that is certainly a special piece to play around with. But again, it is extremely delicate, feminine, and soft. But on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, my favorite collection from Tiffany is one that I don't think a lot of people know of. It is the Titan collection, which was actually designed in collaboration with Pharrell Williams, the singer, rapper, at this point head of Louis Vuitton. At one point, he also had a collaboration with Chanel. In fact, I think he had a couple of collaborations with Chanel, which I actually really liked. But at this point, Pharrell is everywhere, and he even has a collaboration with Tiffany. And it's a collaboration that I actually am a gigantic fan of. I don't own any pieces from this collection. This collection is extremely exclusive, so I have not had a chance to have a look at these for myself in person, but I would love to play around with them one day. The inspiration behind these pieces is quite special, so it is called the Titan collection, and it's actually inspired by Poseidon and his trident, featuring not only Tahitian pearls but also diamonds. My favorite pieces from this collection are actually their rings, even though again it's a fully comprehensive collection, a collection that even has some sunglasses. And I do love, they have this one sunglass which is called the Architect, I believe that's what it's called, and it's this really cool round pair of sunglasses with some gold plated accents, white gold plated to be exact. And those sunglasses kind of remind me of the costume designer from, what is that Disney movie called? Is it called the something family? I put in a picture here. I'm sure you'll be familiar with that iconic Disney character. Her glasses remind me of these sunglasses, which I would love to try on one day. Again, I have not had a chance to do so, but I think that would be quite the piece. Other than the sunglasses, I just love the rings in this collection. They have these incredible multi-layered rings that are made up of several independent bands that actually move on their own. Some alternate between plain and paved, while others actually blend gold with aged titanium, which I think is so incredibly cool. To me, this collection almost feels like as if Tiffany had a secret love affair with chrome hearts, and this was the fruit of their love affair. Also, I think if you like brands like Kill Colin, their rings are something that you would really enjoy, although they are in a very different price range, because I think the Tiffany Titan rings start at around $12,000 if I'm not mistaken, but there are several different versions. There are some in white gold with diamonds. There are some wider ones which again feature alternating bands. Some will have diamonds, others will not. Some will be made of gold, while others will be made of actual titanium. But if you're looking for something really modern, bold, cool, edgy looking, something that you will not see from many other brands, this is a collection that I would love to put on your radar. And again, if you love things along the lines of Chrome Hearts and Kill Colin, this is just sort of the next level of that particular aesthetic. And this was the truth about Tiffany. Everything you need to know about this legendary brand before you bring your next blue box home. I cannot wait to hear your thoughts about Tiffany in the comment section. Let me know if you own any pieces from Tiffany. Do you currently have any Tiffany pieces on your wish list? Have you dreamt of owning a Tiffany engagement ring? Perhaps your engagement ring is from Tiffany. I would love to hear your experience when it comes to this iconic brand. And while you're down there, make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't done so yet. I really appreciate you being here and watching, and I cannot wait to see you back here with a new video really, really soon.